These are 10 insane cars which have been leaked in Forza Horizon 5 and expected to be released over the coming months. Now, of course, not every single one of these cars is going to be released into the game over the next few updates, but it is pretty common that most of them will be added over the next, whether it could be next update in Series 43 or maybe even a couple updates later down the line. Often after these cars are first added into the game files, it is a good indication they will be added, especially if we see things like the physics of the cars being mapped out and further changes that look like they're actively in development. Sometimes we'll just see a little bit of talk by developers or simply another car added to the game files, but it's always more convincing if there's something else to back that up. So I'll be getting started with the first car on the list, which of course is going to be the Mercedes Maybach S680 2024. This is a pretty insane car, of course expected to have the default two-tone colours as well as the champagne fridge in the back of the back. Now, we actually haven't seen any Maybachs added to Forza Horizon 5 really ever since the incorporation of the game series, but it's always been a car that's been in relatively high demand. Whether it's the S680 or even the GL600 with the trunk open, there are various different Maybachs people have been wanting to add to the game, as well as general other luxury cars like Rolls-Royce, which we previously saw in Forza Horizon 3, so let's hope they can be added to the game pretty soon. And next up on the list we have the Ferrari SP3 Daytona 2022, a very exclusive Ferrari. We've seen quite a number of Ferraris added to the game over the last 12 months or so, but this one would probably top all of them. Whether it's cars like the SF90 Stradale, which are very popular, I can imagine the Daytona will be significantly popular than all of them, and would be a great way to relive a bit of the hype into Forza Horizon 5. Now, some of these cars, which are seen as better, could potentially be added to the game files to actually be saved for Forza Horizon 6, but they're simply mapping them out with the Horizon 5 physics in preparation. This is very possible and something we could potentially expect to see, especially for some of these more desirable or hypercars, that it is possible or reasonable that developers could want to save until Horizon 6 to really make the game bang from the start. However, at the same time, they still need to add new cars in Horizon 5 that are interesting enough to keep their gameplay or their player base around, so it's about balancing those two objectives. Next up, the Maserati MC20. This car has been leaked in the game for probably over a year now. It was leaked at once with around 6 or 7 cars all at the same time, and since then, around 4 to 5 of those have all been released in the game. It was a very accurate leak that I found, and out of that, like I said, most of the cars were since added to the game, and the MC20 is probably going to be no exception to that. It's simply a matter of time until it's finally added, and it's very, very likely Forza do indeed have this on their roadmap. And next up is going to be the 2004 Toyota Altima RS200. This car's been leaked in the game files with the actual physics completely mapped out and ready to be implemented in the game. And like I mentioned at the start of the video, this doesn't often happen if they're not going to be added. It doesn't really logically make sense that developers would put a lot of effort into preparing the physics of the game if they didn't already get approval for the licensing, so we can expect that it's pretty reasonable this car will be added to the game very, very soon. A similar car is going to be the 1995 Honda CRX de Sol 1995. This is the same instance where the leaked physical version of the car was actually mapped out and pretty much completely ready to be added. It's simply a matter of time. So there are a fair few examples of these cars we do see on this list, but often when they are on the list, they're definitely going to be a bit more convincing than some of the other cars, so it's always interesting to see. Next up is going to be the Lamborghini Revuelto. This car, of course, we've seen quite a few Lamborghinis. We saw the Aventador S. We, of course, have the SVJ in the game already. We've seen other ones like the new Countach. We've seen quite a number of Lamborghinis as my underlying point, and the Revuelto would be a pretty insane one. I think it's possible the same principle could apply to the Lamborghini Revuelto as what we've seen with the Ferrari SP3 Daytona, where maybe this is a nicer car they're simply getting ready for Forza to actually prepare for its release in Horizon 6. So I'm not 100% sure this car will come to the game, but it does seem like things are being prepared for it to come into a Forza game in general. So next up on the list is going to be the Ferrari F80. Now, I personally don't think the Ferrari F80 in itself will come to the game. I think it might be a prototype variant. Now, we've seen this before in previous games like Forza Horizon 4. The Lamborghini Urus was not actually initially added into the game as a full Urus. It was a prototype concept which was added. So once the actual Urus was added to the game, you could drive both, not only the real Urus, but also the concept car as well. It's very possible Forza will try this with the F80. They could get a concept car into the game, and often manufacturers like Ferrari do kind of like this, as it builds a bit of their hype for the car amongst these player bases and just generally gets hype and people talking about them. And from Forza's perspective, if people might just start playing Forza again to try out this insane new Ferrari hypercar, what better way to do it than through a prototype? So I think it's very reasonable, and it's also very possible this could happen, as the actual F80 probably isn't ready to be added to the games quite yet, but it still is somewhat possible. Now next up is going to be the 2004 Chrysler PT Cruiser GT. This is a bit of an older car. There are often a lot of these older cars listed as these leaked, whether they're being recycled from previous Forza games or seemingly just ones that licensors didn't have a chance to add in the past. They're always trying to keep these cars in circulation via these racing games, and this Chrysler is no exception to that. So it could be a pretty cool car. I'm personally not extremely stoked about it. I think there could be better cars we'd see added to the game, but again, I'm always happy to see a new, generally unique car coming to these games. Next up is going to be the McLaren P1 GTR Lenzente. Now, I might not have pronounced that right, but what we do know is the McLaren P1 GTR has actually been a leaked car for quite a number of years in Forza. In fact, when Forza Horizon 4 first came out, it was a car that was in the game files, and you could occasionally verse it as an AI car, meaning you could be in a race and you could verse the car as the P1 GTR. This was only for around 1 month after the game came out, and occasionally was seen on some dev builds, but it didn't stay around for long. So this shows that the full physics of the car already, it was pretty much in the game, but it was simply not obtainable by legitimate players. And of course, the GTR though, maybe they'll come back, maybe they'll add it with a little bit of a spin, like the Lenzente variation of this car, and I think that'll be very cool to see. Now, be sure to like and subscribe to stay up there with any further of these cars, but the last one I'll be covering in this video is going to be the Ariel Atom 4R. These Ariel cars have been in the game for quite a while. They're pretty cool though, definitely a bit of fun to use in off-road rally events, so seeing another one of these would be something I'd be happy to go ahead and see added to the game. Comment down below what cars you want to see, but that's going to wrap up for this one. Thank you all so much for watching.